Now, I'm not saying it wasn't wrong for Act to call some of these old heads dusty, but that was the line. Like the word dusty in itself was that. I understand the whole statement, of course, like, and to give you a bit of the statement. Them niggas be looking really dusty. I kid you not. And none of y'all try to come me because I don't fuck with y'all niggas either. So I'm just telling y'all the truth. That statement right there set the internet, at least, for the hip hop community, ablaze. And it does sound very ignorant in regards to the fact that if whenever we're talking about old heads by that statement, just because they weren't able to make the bread to financially set themselves solid at this point, it is disrespectful because Act is someone that's very on the numbers, on the monies. When it comes to business, that's something he prioritizes in his head. And this is coming from somebody that's been watching Act for years. But when I heard this statement, I also knew where it was coming from and that he didn't provide enough context for it. So I'm like, I could see why it got to this situation. I wouldn't say it's a matter of miscommunication, but not communicating enough. Anyhow, just that statement alone, without any context, without anything of what I know, what Act later on explains, I think we could all agree is extremely ignorant and reckless, seen as how if it contributing to the hip hop culture doesn't just mean you got to figure out how to get a bag out of it. It's the actual influence, the craft, the inspiration you give to other artists or other individuals that continues to build on the genre. That's one of the most beautiful things, not just for hip hop, but music in general, is how the past generation, what they did, build the building stones for what other people can do. And I'm not gonna sit here and act like I know everything about how hip hop was done back in the day because I'm only 24. I wasn't through hip hop's golden era or such and such, but it's a good thing we got the people like LL Cool J that could give us better insight on that. But one thing that I know through my experience is that without the rappers from the last generation, we wouldn't be getting the rappers from this generation. And if it wasn't for the rappers of last generation being able to create this, to create what they do and get it to a point where bread is able to be made, to where you're able to make money off your music, your album, your touring, and continuously branch off from those things. From now, all right, you rapping? All right, now labels are really believing in the music. All right, now we getting management teams. Now we getting sponsorships. All those things coming together. That wasn't around like it is today. So it is important for, as far as the hip hop contribution, genuine hip hop contribution, there got to be some respect there and acknowledgement. Now, off that statement, it wasn't none of that. So of course we got the LL Cool J response, which for the most part, everything I just said is what he said. Now there was a couple bits and pieces where I felt LL Cool J, he's out of the loop because it ain't like all these old heads and a lot of the older folks in hip hop embrace the younger generation. And this is important. Why you brought that up, the younger generation? Because when I heard Act's statement about these old heads and calling them dusty, it comes from a place, I want to say resentment and anger from whenever he was coming up and how some of them try to bring him down. And especially around 2016 SoundCloud era, when Act was reporting on some of these rappers coming, whether it was Uzi, whether it was Yachty, and the music was hot and blowing up. Everybody that went through 2016 and genuinely loved the music, one of the best years for hip hop ever. A great time to listen to music. Man, I'm getting memories right now. Hold on. Let me reminisce real quick. Good times. I vividly remember a lot of these old heads, these gatekeepers, older folks, hating on the younger generation. So that's some of the context I already knew when Act said that statement. So whenever it came for Act to release his episode on Spotify where he explains it better, it's just like, all right, anybody that didn't know this could understand it better. And you still drop the ball to a certain extent. But now it's time for the old heads to understand his side too. Because when it comes to actual contribution, Act, you dropped the ball. When it comes to real disrespect, if we really want to talk about disrespect, it's been coming from both sides for a long time. And, sometimes both sides, they don't know how to communicate. So you might have recently seen him with Act going at Ebro, and Ebro is somebody. And, for me and you to be on the same page, when it comes to A lot of the new generation, he wasn't rocking with them. We could go for the infamous Lil Uzi interview where he was saying he wasn't going to last. We could talk about how he's selectively biased towards a large amount of rappers on Apple Music. But for right now, we're just going to focus on the fact that old heads weren't able, the ones that weren't able to make a business or make money off of it are now at a point where, they hear, Cool J saying, yeah, they paved the way for hip hop. We can all agree on that. We don't see nothing wrong by that. But now that that's been talked about, and Ak is going to give context to why he views some of these old heads the way they are, is a separate conversation of, all right, cool. Y'all talking so much about contributing to hip hop. Y'all talk about so much about the culture. What was wrong with y'all, or what was going on with y'all 2016 plus, when we had a new generation of artists, rappers, making the music that they did, and y'all weren't rocking with it. Y'all were trying to gatekeep the traditional style of rap that, at least for the younger folks, they ain't gonna last forever. Hip hop's always evolving. Y'all talk about hip hop, y'all talk about the culture, but when it came time, whenever there was a shift, y'all were doing everything you can to suppress them. You all were doing everything you can to suppress Ak. And I'm not gonna go about every statement, every detail, because you can always just watch out Cool J's, and then you can watch the Ak episode. But Ak fully explained the bitterness and sort of resentment he's had towards some of these old heads, some of these people, some of the people he had to deal with in the industry, not helping him, not helping some of these other artists. So that's why he has a lot of resentment towards old heads that sort of jealous of him too, because he's been able to make money, capitalize off of this, which, he did his thing. Let me know if I lost y'all at any point of this. So my mindset in between all of this was, Ak dropped the ball. The original statement, LL Cool J made amazing points as far as, older artists paving the way for the whole entire infrastructure to where hip hop is now. However, when it comes to all these old heads, when it comes to the appreciation of hip hop, a lot of these old heads were doing anything they can to make sure the change in hip hop. Let's stop that. We ain't rocking with the Uzis, with the Yachties. We ain't rocking with none of that noise. But now that, it's here. This ain't a phase. It's an evolution. Now it's at a point where it's like, all right, this is where my personal stance is. We're past the point of we ain't rocking with how hip hop sounds right now. And some older folks are at a point where they're embracing it. Let's make money together. Let's make money together. All right, Ak. You ain't have the best experience with some of the people here that weren't trying to give you their hand to help you out, or some of these other artists that you were discussing, they try to shun you because you weren't on the radio or podcast. That's cool enough. For some of the old heads that genuinely want to have a discussion or genuinely be like, hey, let's do something here. This is where, all right, we went from a little back and forth, bringing more into the conversation, and potentially let's get some business out of this. I will personally love LL Cool J Ak episode. Egos aside, tension aside, and genuinely discuss where each other are coming from, why we're not seeing eye to eye. And I will hope throughout this episode, I say this all the time because I'm in the process of improving my communication with me to y'all. Me to myself, most importantly, because I know there will be points throughout the past couple months of doing this podcast where I'll just be like, man, did I get out of subject? Did I lose myself? Did I lose the audience? So to summarize all that, again, yeah, Ak dropped the ball with the original comment, LL Cool J. Yeah, we understand where you're coming from, but LL Cool J, a lot of old heads, they were hating on the new generation. They were hating on Ak. So that little bit of resentment, a little bit of ignorance that came out in the context that wasn't being given by Ak, that was explained later on in the Spotify episode. Now we see the full picture to understand, like, all right, this isn't just a one-sided thing. This is just an everything thing. Everything thing. What a simple way to, yeah, it's everything, man. What do you mean? It's just not one person. By everything, it's a lot more than just a comment. It's how interactions have been over the past couple years. Like, I want to say 6 to 8 years in hip hop. And I feel a big thing, like I already said earlier, okay, now we got a lot of this tension out of the way, but if we out here, we loving hip hop, we appreciating the culture, whether it's the old heads, younger guys, younger commentators, older commentators, Let's get together and make some bread. Let's keep let's actually help each other out. There's an old head out here. I don't even want to keep saying old head. I'm just saying it for the fact that there ain't like individual people that I want to name for the sake of he said this comment at this year. But there's some people that if they pockets hurting, but they cool. Let's set a situation up where both sides can eat, both parties can eat, or we could all just keep going together. That's my mindset on it. And we're gonna be going on to the next topic.